Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation. Hello and welcome, Danielle. So happy to have you with us today. So I would like to just start the introduction and then let you jump in and say as much as you'd like about yourself. So Danielle Rama Hoffman, you are a scribe, a divine transmitter. You are a midwife to the visionaries and spiritual coaches. You have just published your third book, and you work with Thoth and the Council of Light. So I'd like you to just fill in. I'm sure I've left out a lot of juicy details, so just go ahead.
Well, that was a really great summary, and thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be co-creating and co-midwifing this conversation together with you. And yeah, I've been in the healing arts now for 24 years, which is just amazing to me. And really where I am right now is what I call divine transmissions or divinely transmitting. So I work and partner directly with light beings such as Thoth and the Council of Light to bring in bodies of work that support visionaries and coaches to move from separation consciousness, that sense of lack or fear or doubt, into unity consciousness and really being at one and in coherence with ourselves and with our divine light missions. So that's a little bit more about me and where I've been coming from, although it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, so let's talk about your journey because, well, first of all, I'm sure our viewers have a ton of questions. What is the Council of Light? What are you transmitting? So let's start with that. Can you introduce us, can you introduce the Council of Light to us a little bit and maybe talk about your journey to connecting with them?
Yeah, so the Council of Light are a group of intergalactic light beings from across the multiverse whose purpose is to enhance joy and health and wealth and happiness. And I first met the Council of Light through Thoth, the Egyptian god of infinite wisdom, keeper of the Akashic records. And for me, my journey to connect with beings of light wasn't something that happened really right away for me, that I started in counseling and psychology and then did massage therapy and taught massage therapy and then evolved into energy healing and Reiki. And that's really when I first started to become aware consciously of beings of light in this incarnation. And I think that was around 1994, and then I connected with Thoth in 1996. So it's been quite a while that we've developed this relationship, and for me, it's a partnership, a friendship, a mentoring, and that really is how I build my life and make my decisions, is really in a partnership with beings of light. So I know it's a unique thing to have a business that has partners that don't have bodies. Yeah, but it's fun.
I bet. Is there any particular reason why you specifically partnered with Thoth? What Thoth?
Yeah, well, I think that it came from really past lives of having partnered with Thoth in previous incarnations. And what I would say too is that there's a real synergy to my signature energy and to Thoth's signature energy. And so that can also be a part of the partnering or the hookup. And so for different individuals, you know, I spent a lot of focus working with the Egyptian pantheon and connecting with different beings from the Egyptian pantheon. And so they're all unique in ways that we can access source or infinite oneness or the divine directly. And so for my particular energy system, Thoth is really an access point for me to then be accessing the Council of Light or other beings of light. So it's a little bit, I think, a matter of agreement, but then also compatibility. And the Council of Light talks about this as well, is that how each individual who chooses has your unique Council of Light based on what really is in resonance with your system. And it doesn't mean that other beings are good or bad. It's just it's not really what's yours to be and do and have. So that's how I like to think about it.
So you mentioned signature energy, and I know, you talk about it in other teachings that come through. So I want to ask about that, but I also know that you really like to, or you prefer at this point to speak, with the Council of Light and sort of allow them to meld with you within the interview and speak with them. So if it feels right, then please go ahead and do that, and then I'll ask about the signature energy.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think before bringing in the Council of Light or the beings of light that'll come forward, I would respond to the question of signature energy, because I think it's a good lead in to bringing in the Council of Light, because the signature energy really is our unique fingerprint or our unique energy signature. And that one of the ways to navigate the shift in consciousness and to evolve is by really vibrating our unique essence and turning it on, and that also facilitates greater abundance and greater health, and really positioning us to be accessing what is uniquely ours. And so to have that be kind of a segue, I'd invite each of you to be calling upon your signature energy. And in order to do that, you may think about what makes you uniquely you. And so you could begin with also thinking physically about the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, or also kind of those qualities that you carry. That with the Pantheon, for example, there are beings of light that have different qualities, like Isis is the goddess of love, and Hathor is the goddess of sensuality and bliss, and Sekhmet's the lioness goddess of compassion and healing as well through destruction. So there can be these different vibrations or qualities. And so as a way of tuning into your signature energy, because I also think that we are a part of the Council of Light, we just happen to be incarnate, that may be an entry point to think about, like, well, what divine qualities do you carry, and to bring those to the forefront. So that's a little bit about signature energy, and it may be an interesting question as well to ask the team. So I'll just go ahead and tune in and bring them in. And while I'm doing that, inviting each of you to be tuning into your signature energy, your signature essence. Hello, dear ones. It is I, Thoth, with the Emerald Ray, the U Ray, the Council of Light, that are moving more into the forefront of this divine transmission, and that there are also what we would call the awareness of the higher selves of those that are tuning into this particular transmission. So, as was just mentioned, it's as if you each have a contribution to this conversation, and so we're also opening up the possibility to be transmitting some from the level of your higher self. So have an awareness not only of your signature energy if you choose, yet also the part of you that knows how to be awakening or activating new consciousness, because that is really the subject of this series. And in order to activate new consciousness, there is a simultaneity of honoring and including the previous paradigm or consciousness back into the wholeness, back in the oneness, back into the source from which it came. So we're delighted to be here and continue the conversation in any direction that you're called.
Thank you and welcome. So you just mentioned unity consciousness and welcoming parts of you back into unity. And that's one of the things that I love about your message, is that the unity consciousness is really not, or as we activate our consciousness rather, it's not about isolating those parts that are not quite good enough and clearing them away, but rather incorporating all of them and loving them into the whole. And so I'd like you to talk more about your perspective on unity consciousness.
Yes, well, separation consciousness or tribal consciousness really is based on duality, and that awareness or that sensation of lack or fear or doubt. So the shift from separation consciousness, which again really has that sensation that you're always separate from yourself, separate from what it is that you'd like to have in your life, that there's something wrong, something that needs to be fixed, that there's a problem, that's a part of the consciousness of the old paradigm of separation consciousness, that sensation that really you're in some state of lack and some state of a gap, and that unity consciousness honors the separation consciousness or the duality, the up down, right wrong, left right, yet at the same time recognizing that it has everything within it to evolve into unity consciousness. So rather than flipping back and forth between a slower vibrational feeling or thought or energy and a higher vibrational feeling, thought, or energy, there's the bringing together into unity, into oneness. And so just as you said, from our perspective, there's more to be garnered from being in unity consciousness than from repeating another repetitive pattern of separation consciousness. And so the way to be in unity consciousness is not to release or to clear or to try to get rid of that which you don't prefer. It's actually by welcoming it into the oneness, into the wholeness, and also asking it to evolve to its next evolution in consciousness, and then to use it as momentum, as rocket fuel for your individual evolution in consciousness. So yes, that is very much our message, that anything that you're keeping separate from you, including you, to invite those energies back into the oneness and into the wholeness. And in the Council of Light book, there is the love ray, and calling upon the love ray that really supports that process of dropping those separation borders or foundations. So as we're continuing this conversation, we're placing the love ray on the altar of the heart for you to pick up if you're called, and enter into greater inclusion, because consciousness and unity and consciousness includes all that there is. And it is like a shift from the third chakra, that sensation and the old paradigm of power over, power under, or utilizing the will or lack or force, into the heart center, really including everything and bringing it into a place of oneness. So that's another way to provide a context for this larger evolution in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So for people that may just be beginning to sort of feel like they're taking the first steps towards greater consciousness, and they're living everyday normal life, what are the more practical ways for them? You know, when we're talking about bring, you know, your shadow self into oneness, or bring, you know, all the parts of you into oneness, welcome them. What does that mean to them? You know, what is it that they actually can do to make that happen on a daily basis?
Yes. Well, there are a lot of layers to that. And one of the reasons that we focus on energy and consciousness is that energy and consciousness touches all areas of your life. And so there is the awareness that a practical tool is based in energy,
Mhm.
is based in consciousness, and an energetic tool is also within it having the practicality. So we get what it is that you're asking, that it may be beneficial to have a bit of a bridge in between what it is that we're saying in terms of including back in the wholeness, including back in the oneness. And one of the ways that we love to create those bridges are through analogies or through visualizations. And so one of the first keys to really be activating the unity consciousness, or as you're saying, the new consciousness, is also to recognize that a part of you knows. Like, even if this conversation is seeming out there, or like what's being said, that a part of you knows, and to have that part of you that knows to also be guiding the process, because we are speaking to you as multidimensional beings, which includes your body, your mind, and your emotions, and yet you're more than your body, your mind, and your emotions. And so anything that can create that greater sense of flow, or that greater sense of perspective, where you're not tunneling into an emotion or into a thought or into a body sensation, and still including those, yet as a part of the oneness. So one exercise that you may choose to do is to imagine each of your sensations, and that you just imagine how it is that your body's feeling in the chair, and you imagine the feeling tone of how you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling peaceful, or maybe you're feeling irritated, or whatever it is, and just go through your sensations one at a time and equally. And then once you've done that for a few moments, imagine that you're zipping them all up simultaneously, like teeth on a zipper, individual teeth on a zipper, one sensation, another sensation, another sensation, and they're separate. And then you choose to zip them all up into oneness. Then they come into unity consciousness. So that can be an exercise to do, to kind of build this awareness of moving from individual sensations into greater oneness. And that there can also be the getting to know your territory of, like, what is it that you say to yourself? What is it that happens that you move from center into separation? And also paying attention to that could be an exercise or a practical step of writing it down. Like, when you notice that you're in a slower vibration, or you've moved into fear or doubt or lack, like, to go back a few steps and have greater awareness. And then to begin to get to know that pattern so thoroughly that when it happens, you can just see it as an indication that you've left source, or you've left your center, or you've gone into separation, rather than thinking that that is a problem. You can see it or reframe it as an indication that you've left source. So, for example, for your divine transmitter, Danielle, one of the things that is underneath whatever it is that will create that sense of separation consciousness in her life usually boils down to some sensation that she's done something wrong, or she could do something wrong. And underneath that sensation of doing something wrong is often that sensation or that fear of being ostracized, losing love, being killed, hiding out, like all of those kinds of things that then would create the leaving of her signature energy, and that can be an awareness. So now she knows that usually she can track down to whatever she said to herself or whatever that was based on that sensation of doing something wrong, and then recognizing that it's an illusion. So even as you move into greater states of consciousness and you evolve, it's natural to have separation consciousness come up, to move into unpreferred sensations or feelings or lower vibrations, and yet to not let those stop you, and then also to be so familiar with them that it's almost like it loses its energy. It's just a part of the whole.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really beautiful. Thank you. So I want to go back for a minute. It's a little bit of a detour, but you talked about bringing the love ray, and putting it on the altar. And I know you work with different rays, and I was wondering if you can tell our viewers more about the rays and their purpose, and kind of what they are and how you work with them, or how we can work with them.
Yes. So this is in the Council of Light book, and there are 11 rays of light, and that the rays of light are, you can think of them like helpers or guides or supporters that have different purposes or different frequencies, different vibrations. So just as a carpenter might apply a nail to building something, that the rays, or a dentist may utilize a tool or apply a certain drill, that the rays of light are tools of light that you can apply to your energy system, because you, in addition to being body, mind, and emotion, you're also energy. So it's often spoke about as the chakras or the aura. We speak about it as your multidimensional self, that from our perspective, you are light beings in form. And so having a tool set where you can apply light to your light, then that's really a match. And so one of the rays of light is the love ray. And the love ray, as we mentioned, really takes down those borders of separation. So let's say that you've been asking for more love or greater health or greater success, and it hasn't actualized into physical form, then you can imagine that it's just on the other side of a door, and the love ray, it opens that door. Or like if you're in different cubicles in an office, that you're in a cubicle and everything that you've been asking for is in all the cubicles around you, and then you call upon the love ray and apply the love ray like paint to a canvas to drop those walls. So that's one of the rays of light, the love ray. And then there's also and we're tuning in, the rainbow ray, which is the wholeness ray. And the rainbow ray is really, again, bringing that which is separate back into oneness, back into wholeness, back into the source from which it came. And just like the rainbow has all the full spectrum of colors of light within one rainbow, the rainbow ray also supports. So with the zipper exercise, you can allow each of the sensations and then have the rainbow ray be what kind of seals it all up together.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'd like to talk about abundance now, multidimensional abundance. And what does that look like for us? Because when we talk about abundance, we usually think about money and material things. And of course, multidimensional abundance looks at all areas of our existence. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Yes, so multidimensional abundance is really being resourced on all levels. And so there is the resources, if there are resources like money and time and
Mhm.
energy and also creativity, love, that there are many layers to abundance that you can also see on the Earth star, that there may be some countries or individuals that have a higher abundance on one part of the graph, like maybe they have more financial abundance or financial wealth, and then another part of the graph is lower, like of relational wealth, of having loving relationships and connections. And so that's separation consciousness, that you're trading one form of abundance for another, or there's an aspect of the graph that is higher and then others are lower. So multidimensional abundance really is the oneness with all that there is, and that also is based on the signature energy. And so we also like to say of actualizing what's uniquely you and yours, nothing more and nothing less, because it doesn't mean that bigger, better, faster is actually more abundant. Having that absolute impeccable right fit of abundance. And so it's not that for each individual, each part of the graph of multidimensional bliss is equal, because it may be constitutionally that you happen to have a higher affinity, or on a soul level a higher desire or requirement to have abundance in relationships, or abundance in energy or health, or money. So multidimensional abundance is really not trading or being separate from one resource going up and another going down, yet really having it be multi-dimensionally in a state of oneness and in a state of abundance.
And so, would you suggest that people kind of, I guess, I keep thinking inventory, but kind of tune into themselves and see where they're abundant and see where they're sort of lower on the abundance and start from that point? Because we may tend to think that we don't have much in our life, for example, but there may be an area where we're extremely abundant and we're not really giving it the attention or honor that it deserves.
Yeah, so it could be an interesting exercise to create like this graph of different pillars,
Mhm.
and to have like a 1 to 10, and then to then have one pillar that's for health, one pillar that's for uh, love, career, creativity, joy, relationships, money, whatever it is, and then having those pillars in a sense, and this giving it 1 through 10, like having an inventory. And we're bringing this exercise up because it will bring up the separation consciousness to be included. It'll bring up that part of you that maybe is judging what you don't have, or focusing on the lack. And just as Natalie, you were inviting this inquiry to also be looking at what is already going well and enhancing what is going well, bringing the attention to that abundance by bringing awareness to it. And this was something that Danielle often saw when she would go to Egypt, for example, and bring people to Egypt, that the financial abundance may have been low lower in the individuals that she was meeting, and yet the relational wealth, the relational abundance was very strong, that there was a sense of community, that as she would then go back to the States or the Western world, that she would see often a greater sense of isolation or a lower abundance of relational wealth, and a higher abundance perhaps as that financial wealth. So it may also be a chance to really tune in and see, well, what would you like to have greater wealth in? And then recognize that that may also, there may be a theme there that may be illuminating something underneath the desire, because usually the desire for greater abundance, it is there can be a theme or something that it's pointing to underneath it.
And so what keeps coming to me is the thought that some viewers may have that, you know, the talk about abundance is great, but there are realistically limited resources. There's realistically only so much, you know, and so this consciousness of limitation and lack that we have really grown up in and have been raised in. So can you expand on that and maybe help us sort of shatter that belief or that state of mind that there is only so much to go around?
Yes, well, that really brings up the split of spiritual and material, that as you incarnated, as you were born, part of the ticket for entering was this separation consciousness of incarnating during separation consciousness or survival consciousness, and going into the divine forgetting, separating from source. And then there was this illusion that you're finite and you live in a finite world, and that now that you're also living in a time where there's this overlap in consciousness of unity consciousness, it's the awakening of the eternal nature, the awakening of the infinite nature, the merging of physical and spiritual or energetic as one. And so we would also invite you to tune into the energy units of consciousness of any resource to support that sensation of limitation evolving into greater unity. So for example, with money, that there is the money that's already been created. If somebody's choosing to actualize money, they don't have to go and print more money. It's more about being in the vibration or the energy location as the money. Or if somebody is choosing to meet someone to have a friendship with or a romantic partnership with, it's not that they have to make the baby, the person already exists. So it's about coming into vibrational proximity with the individual. And one of the ways to facilitate this is to be tuning into not only the physical aspects or that which you're calling reality, yet to also tune into the energy, the eternal nature. For there is an infinite capacity in each and every moment. And back to your earlier question of like, how is it that you can become more aware of the abundance that you already have? The infinite exists in each and every moment. Unity consciousness exists in each and every moment. And sometimes it's not about adding more, it's about the capacity to be able to absorb even more of what it is that you have, to be able to be present with it, appreciate it, and be in the energy stream of it. And so we're also bringing in the solar ray, which is the now ray. And the solar ray, the now ray, invites you to be current with who it is that you've become, and also seal in the abundance that you may have sealed out or the love that you may not have received, or the awareness that you may not have received, that the solar ray can also support that process of being current with who it is that you've become. So in unity consciousness, there's the awareness that everything exists within each and every moment. And then your capacity to see it and absorb it can create a greater sense of abundance without the external world changing. And this is a lot of our focus with individuals, is to have absolute sovereignty with the internal realms, the internal domain, and then that overflows into the external.
Thank you. So, as we talk about consciousness, awakening, activation, one of the terms that you use is midwifing your soul. So I want to talk about that, but I'd like to, I think, back up a little bit and sort of clarify a little bit more about the journey that we have taken. So if we are midwifing our soul, and we are, spiritual beings, we are spirit that has entered into the separation, into this physical experience, then some viewers may have a question, well, why did that happen? Why are we not fully aware? Why do we have to reawaken ourselves? Why do we have to activate ourselves if we were, activated to begin with? So if you could maybe touch upon the reason why we fall into this forgetfulness about who we are, and are now finding ourselves in this place of having to remember who we are.
Yes. So there is a lot to that question, and so we're just tuning into what would be the most efficient and expansive way of addressing it. And where we would enter into that question is really also with empowerment, or with the awareness that you're each creator beings, and that there is the co-creation of consciousness. And so to remember that there's not any assertion in the universe, or that this forgetting was something that was done to you, that there was the awareness or the level of co-creation that then expanded even greater possibility. And so there is the consciousness that the divine source, spirit, oneness, infinite oneness, God, Goddess, all that there is also dynamic and evolving. That source isn't done. And so by you each choosing to incarnate during a separation consciousness incarnation that also overlaps with a unity consciousness incarnation, there's a possibility to take all of that rocket fuel of separation consciousness and use it to create universal momentum, to create even greater possibility, to contribute directly to the divine. So part of what is happening, and we know that there's the individual level, there's the collective level or the group level, there's the earth star and the environment, there's also the solar system or the galaxies or the multiverse, and then there's the level of this divine expansion, directly contributing to the divine. So some have really gone through a lot of individual transformation and have chosen a lot of individual transformation, what this waking up sensation is, to contribute directly to the divine expansion project. So we know some of this response is couched in separation consciousness language, because you see this now moment in the linear time, that there's a past, a future, and a present. And we're talking about it that way as well, that there was the old paradigm of the Piscean age, if you look at it from the precession of the equinox, that was 2,000 years, and then now this Aquarian age is 2,000 years, and then it'll just keep going. So why is it that there is like this this round of, there's been times where it's been a patriarchy, there's been time where it's been a matriarchy, that there's just been different experiences of it, and yet each experience, just like each experience that you've had in your life, it has purpose, it has greater meaning. So that's a way of us spiraling in to say, as creator beings, there are also those choice points to have experiences like are happening on the Earth star, to also be ways of creating a greater expansion of source directly, or a greater expansion of the divine awakening. So we would say the short of it is that because it has been chosen by you, and also with a larger co-creation, and that leads a bit into what you were going into in terms of the midwifing. Yet we'd pause here because we know that also sometimes the question gets to the energy of what it is that's wanting to be brought forward. And that's why we approach the response that way, that what we had the sense was wanting to come forward for this particular group with that question was anywhere that there was a sensation of being a victim or being a victimizer, to really recognizing this level of choice, this level of co-creation, of being creator beings, that there's not that this is happening to us, that it does have a greater purpose, a greater evolution key to it. And so that's what we had the sense was wanting to come forward, is, and to include it as well as rocket fuel, of anywhere that there is that sensation that life is happening to you, that it's out of your control, that there is that 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 victim energy, to include it back into a greater state of empowerment, because then the journey is about creating. What is it that you can create? What is it that can be expanded? What in this now moment has never existed before, that now through the life experience is existing?
Beautiful, thank you. So I'd like to talk about your work as you work with Danielle. I'm sure there are other people that are connecting with their guides, that are connecting with their sort of support team. I believe that none of us work alone in this incarnation. We all have, we are a team, we are a system going through this experience. So can you talk to this connection? How can people maybe connect clearer to their team, or maybe reach out to a specific light being that they want to work with? Sort of maybe from your perspective, how does that happen? How does that connection happen, or can happen?
The first step in that is also the choice point, and to engage one's free will and conscious choice. And so we'd ask each of you, are you choosing to have a direct connection with source as source? Are you choosing to partner with source as source? And we've kind of loaded a lot into that question, because the choice is simultaneously recognizing that you are source and then partnering with source. And so we just invite you to tune into that question. Are you choosing to partner with source as source or not? And then if it is a yes, that brings us to equanimity or empowerment, the awareness that the connection happens from a space of eye to eye, peer-to-peer, divine to divine. And that eye-to-eye, peer-to-peer, divine to divine connection is also enhanced through the partnership. That as we're connecting with you, being of light, in light to being of light incarnate, then there's the invitation to become even more in the multidimensional self. So if you're trying to approach this conversation with just your mind, then it can be frustrating. So we invite you, if you've gone into your head, to come back into your totality, to come back into your body, into your emotions. Your mind has a role as well, and yet we're speaking to you in your oneness. So this first step is the choice. Are you choosing to partner with Source as Source or not? And then the second step is to really come into the partnership from a place of equality, from a place of equanimity, and then to put out the call to request for your customized, bespoke council of light to come forward in a way that's conscious. Because part of what's also being asked here is how to create an even greater conscious connection or direct connection. And so asking for your unique council of light to come forward. And then just noticing your sensations. And this is where it is that lock and key kind of experience that your signature energy is only bringing to you that which is uniquely you or yours. And also there's a sensation that you may also have completed some relationships with beings of light, that those are also shifting and going back into the source or taking a step back. So we know we're moving pretty quickly, but we're also tuning into the field of everyone and noticing what it is that you're choosing, what it is that you're not choosing, what's unfolding. And then we would just say, like, what would make this real for you? Like, what would make this a relationship that seems as tangible as the one that you have with a tree or with a dog or with another individual that's incarnate? Like, how would you know that this isn't something that you're just making up? And then we'd invite you to have those signals be signals that are ones that are subtle and yet clear, that it's, you don't have to know because something dramatic is happening. So for example, for Danielle, as she connects with us, there's a sensation that she feels in her abdomen, almost like the belly button coming in towards the spine, and that you each have your signature signals already, your unique dictionary of how it is that you're connecting to source and communicating with your intuition and your divine knowing. It's becoming conscious of what those ways are for you. So it may be seeing, it may be hearing, it may be knowing, it may be feeling, and allowing that process to unfold. And then also asking for the connection to be adjusted. Like if you're not aware of it, let your council of light know that, and what will work and what won't work. And then it's just like in a relationship, as you're getting to know one another, it's also spending time or taking time, not necessarily time linearly, yet the space for it. So maybe you have a moment when you're waking up or before you go to sleep where you call upon your team. And remember that your higher self and you as a being of light incarnate or a soul are a part of this team. So we that was a bit of a calibration or a protocol, so that individuals that were choosing to be meeting their teams right here, right now could. And then we know the deeper question is also, well, then how is it that you become conscious of it? And we would invite you to not keep it separate, to invite it into your daily life. So it's not only while you're meditating or only while you're in a good mood, yet to have there be that sensation that it's a part of your life all the time, all day, every day, because you're receiving and transmitting all the time. You have intuition. It's a part of your brilliant system. And so it's also turning it on And then including back in the wholeness, back in the oneness, any reason why you wouldn't. That there may have been those times early on where you didn't want to stand out or seem weird, and in order to lose the fear of losing love or being ostracized. So there may be the shutting down of the intuition that's based on those kind of energies, and that's where your choice can also be re-guiding those previous choices to say, okay, in this now moment, I'm choosing to turn on my intuition and to have access to my divine knowing. And any reason why I may have separated it from the past, I'm including with the love ray back in the oneness, back in the wholeness. So we're using the I to just model that for you as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
So one of the goals for these conversations for me is to really inspire people to see the potential of what's possible as we take these little steps forward in awakening our consciousness and evolving it. So of course you see us from much bigger, much higher perspective. And I would like to, for you to maybe talk to us about what are you see as our potentials, because I know that, there are unlimited potentials all the time, but some are sort of have higher probability of happening than others as we choose in every moment. So what are what do you see for us as the future is unfolding as we're awakening our consciousness? What do you see as potentials for us as humanity, as individuals?
Mm. Yeah, so we would respond to that twofold. The first is that the lots of units of potential, as we've already been speaking about this conversation of separation consciousness, are available to then be utilized or actualized by including back in the oneness, back into the source from which it came, this separation consciousness. So there's a lot of untapped potential that's floating around in the form of separation consciousness, and including that from the vantage point of oneness then shifts some things that could be possible to then becoming inevitable. So this circles back to your question of like, why the divine forgetting? Well, one of the reasons is that then there can be this raw energy, this potency that creates a universal momentum, that creates worlds. And so from our perspective, that's one of the untapped potentials that then can be accessed. And then we would also say, secondly, that really the moving into, the opening into the new, the innovative, the pioneering, the remembering what it is that you carry within you, being willing to do things your way and from your inner guidance, that also will create a greater potentiality, that it isn't through repeating, although it's not that there's anything that's wrong with what is being repeated, but it's not through repeating necessarily the same tools or the same ways of being that the greater evolution happens. So there's also that willingness to unpack the unique vision that you carry as a pioneer, to be bringing that forward as leaders, that the shift and idea of a leader being 1% of the population or the captain of the football team or whatever, to recognizing that you're each leaders with a role in this evolution in consciousness, and part of what will create a greater, what you're calling future, is the unpacking of your divine genius, your gifts, your talents, your brilliance, and being willing to shine, being willing to bring those forward, to come out of the cookie cutter, one size fits all tribal consciousness, and then utilizing the terror that can come up from that and including it as rocket fuel, and then moving forward with the divine genius and the brilliance, because that's also a larger part of the plan and getting into where it is it's headed. It's like, as we call divine transmissions, that there are missions that are in transition. And so you may have completed a part of your purpose already in separation consciousness, and now it's a willingness to move into the next mission, the next divine mission, and to transmit that mission, so that then there is that divine expansion, that to us, that's what we see the potential, is to not only be contributing on the individual level, on the group level, on the planet level, on the galaxy or the multiverse level, yet directly to the divine by being the divine.
Wow, thank you. I love the missions in transition kind of thinking. So we are coming to the end of our time, and I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your wisdom and guidance. And I'm wondering if there is one last sort of message that you want to give to our viewers, perhaps specifically to the group that's here, before we welcome Danielle back.
Yes. Well, we would reiterate the rainbow ray, and the rainbow ray being the wholeness ray, and inviting the rainbow ray to create a greater coherence or divine wholeness with your magical self, your multi-dimensional self. So that's where we would complete, and also acknowledging your contributions to the evolution in consciousness, because it isn't something that we could do or would do without you. And all is light, and you, we are all.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, as you're kind of coming back, I was wondering if you'd like to tell our viewers what you're up to these days. I know you have the third book out, and maybe you'd like to say a few words about that, or any other books that you have available, and anything else that our viewers can find if they reach out to you.
Yeah, so there is the most recent book, The Tablets of Light, the teachings of Thoth on unity consciousness. And then also what I'm really up to these days is the Divine Light Activation 22 sequence, which is available in an ongoing way, like individually, or also in conjunction with either coming to France or bilocating. And that the Divine Light Activation program is really what we've been speaking about, the process of reincarnating as beings of light incarnate, and then actualizing the vision that we carry, reunited with this multidimensional cosmic consciousness. So that is more information about that is available on the website, and the books, the Tablets of Light, the Temples of Light, the Council of Light, are also available anywhere that you would find books. And they're, as a part of the free gift for this particular conversation, if you want to have more experience, there's the Divine You Movement video pack, which has 4 videos and then also an audio transmission more about unity consciousness.
Wonderful. Danielle, thank you so much for offering your gift to the world, for bringing your energy, for sharing your wisdom today, and letting us have a conversation with the Council of Light. Thank you so much for your work.
You're welcome, and thank you for your contribution and all that you're up to. I'm so happy to see you and to be with you in this way. Thanks everyone too that's tuning in.
Yes, thanks.